cererò pararum carcaciume sarerum desnei ainarum carodo yesan huvora membicarun cererò vararum carcaciume sarerum.
Good day. Thank you for joining us from around the world for this UN General Assembly side event on youth perspectives from West Asia and North Africa, taking action on COVID-19, unemployment, climate change, and other global challenges. I'm Richard Ponzio, Director of the Global Justice, Security, and Governance Program at the Stimson Center in Washington, D.C. And on behalf of all of our co-sponsors, the Permanent Mission of Qatar to the United Nations, the West Asia North Africa Institute, the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, and Peace Child International, my colleagues and I are delighted to welcome you to what we hope and believe will be a truly enriching exchange today of diverse and action-oriented perspectives from across West Asia and North Africa. The co-sponsors teamed up for this event at the start of the UN General Assembly's new session in New York and shortly after the commemoration of International Youth Day to provide a space for young people to reflect on and highlight actions that the United Nations and wider international community should take to empower and support youth in West Asia and North Africa in response to major global challenges such as COVID-19, unemployment, violent conflict, refugee youth populations, and of course, climate change. And to also discuss what it means to be a young person today in West Asia and North Africa. Before I turn the virtual floor over to our amazing moderator, Ravi Muthu, who has kindly agreed to moderate today's session, let me briefly share that we are fortunate to have been granted the permission of the accomplished Syrian artist and active member of Peace Child International, Mr. Joseph Tatarian, to play one of his beautiful recorded songs at the outset of today's program. And we have a special treat for all of you today at the conclusion of today's session. So please do stay with us the next 90 minutes. And this, of course, features Mr. Tatarian. Finally, as this is the start of another UN General Assembly session on, or UNGA, as it's commonly referred to in New York, there are, of course, lots of new reports and ideas on what the UN can do better out in circulation. And along with our partners, the Doha Forum, and my colleagues at the Stimson Center, we've just released a new report entitled Building Back Together and Greener, 20 Initiatives for a Just, Healthy, and Sustainable Global Recovery. And this details on it can be found in the chat box. These are several issues that are covered in the report that I hope and expect will be explored in today's program. So then, without any further ado, I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Ravi Muthu, founder of P4G Labs, which is pioneering new technologies for environmentally sensitive development. And he too is an active member of our partner, Peace Child International. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks a lot for the introduction and for handing over the space to me. Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure to be part of this space which Stimson Center and its partners have provided for us young people to reflect, discuss, and highlight the best practices, success stories, and actions that are already happening there and that the international community should be taking up in the future to empower and support young people in the West Asia and North Africa region. A brief introduction. I am Ravi Muthu, and I run a startup called P4G Labs, which is focused on transferring technology from labs to the lives to empower young people, young entrepreneurs who want to create a circular economy. At this moment, we are working on several groundbreaking technologies to recycle, tough to recycle materials like solar panels and lithium-ion batteries. We are researching on these, and the idea is to take in the technologies which we identify, democratize them, and make them available to the people, the young entrepreneurs in the Asian and African continents, so they can make the most out of them. So that is a little bit about me, and I take this opportunity to welcome all the exciting speakers we have for today and the panelists, and of course the more than 100 participants who are going to be joining us either through the Zoom or through the live streaming on YouTube. And mind you, while this event is focused on the West Asia and North Africa region, the audience today are global. We have people joining us from across the world, thanks to Stimson Center and its partners Outreach. And without further delay, I'd like to get into the program for today. And the first segment is we have 3 exciting interventions from people who may not need much of introduction. First up, we have His Excellency Salah bin Ghanem Al Ali, who is the Minister of Culture and Sports of the State of Qatar. Unfortunately, His Excellency was not able to join us live today because of a clash in the schedule, but he has shared his message underscoring Qatar's commitments and best practices for empowering youth and safeguarding the future of the region for generations to come. Now, without further delay, let's jump right into the video message of His Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أرحب في البداية بالسيدة جياتما مبعوث الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة المعنية بالشباب، وبسعادة أخي السيد طه إيهان رئيس منتدى التعاون الإسلامي للشباب، وكل المشاركين والمتابعين لفعالية أصوات شابة من جنوب غرب آسيا وشمال أفريقيا. عاش العالم في المرحلة الأخيرة تحديات كبرى جعلته على مشارف دورة حضارية جديدة، ولدت فيه حاجة ملحة إلى قوة مبدعة ومخلصة تمكنه من الاستجابة لكل هذه التحديات. وليست هذه القوة غير شباب العالم الذين سيقودون البشرية بفضل ما يكتسبونه من مبادئ وتصورات وقيم. هي التعبير الأمثل عن الهوية الجامعة التي تربط جميع شعوب العالم. ما يجمعنا هو هوية واحدة تعكس حرصنا الجماعي على الكرامة الإنسانية التي تقوم على تحقيق الحرية وتعزيز العدل، وحبنا للمعرفة باعتبارها اكتشافا وإبداعا متواصلا، وإخلاصنا للعمل والتفاني في إتقانه. هذه التصورات الكبرى هي بوصلة الشباب العالمي في كل مكان، وبالأخص في غرب آسيا وشمال أفريقيا، وهي رأس المال الرمزي الذي يمنح كل شاب القدرة الكافية للتمكين في شتى المجالات. إذا كنا نريد بلوغ مراتب التقدم على كل المستويات، فإننا مدعوون إلى الثقة في شبابنا الذين هم أهل له، لينطلق في سماء الحرية التي سمحت له بالإبداع والابتكار والريادة والتمتع بالعدل الذي سمح له بالفرص المتكافئة. يحتاج الشباب إلى التمكين للمشاركة في الحياة العامة وفي التنمية المستدامة وفي صنع القرار لتلبية تطلعاتهم وتعزيز قدراتهم. فالمجتمعات تحتاج إبداع شبابها وروحه المبادرة حتى يكون منتجا وفاعلا. ويعتبر الشباب القطري جزءا من شباب العالم الذي يسمو بهذه المثل، وما يعيشه من تحديات هو انعكاس لما يعيشه شباب العالم أيضا. وهو حين يتقدم خطوات في تحقيق تمكينه فإنما يدعم كل الخطوات التي يقطعها شباب العالم بعزم من أجل مستقبل أفضل لحياة البشرية. وقد انطلقت دولة قطر في إعداد السياسة الوطنية للشباب، مما يترجم انخراطنا الكلي في قطر في تمكين الشباب وإيماننا بدوره في مجتمعه وفي الانفتاح على العالم. وها هي المراكز الشبابية تتحول إلى مراكز منتخبة الواحدة تلو الآخر. واليوم يعيش شبابنا من الجنسين في تجربة مجلس الشورى الذي سيكون منتخبا، فنجد الشباب مشاركا في المناقشات وحاضرا في المشهد الانتخابي سواء بالترشح أو بالانتخاب. لذلك فقد حان الوقت لنثق في إمكانيات شبابنا ونصنع الفرصة لشباب العالم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
There will be a summary of the webinar shared with the participants after the event. His Excellency's message will also be translated into English and will also be part of it for those who could not follow his message due to the language issues. Next up, we have Ms. Jayatma Vikramanayake, who is the UN Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. She also has shared a video message with us, and let's jump into it right now.
Colleagues, friends, greetings from New York. My name is Jayatma Vikramanayake and I am the United Nations Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. Thank you for the invitation to join you today for this important event. As you might know, a core part of my mandate is to bring the United Nations closer to young people and young people closer to the United Nations. The greatest tool I have to do this is Youth 2030, the UN's first ever system-wide strategy on youth. Since the strategy was launched in 2018, I've had the pleasure of working very closely with other UN agencies, funds, programs, our UN country teams, and young people themselves in bringing this strategy to life. Our common vision is a world in which the human rights of every young person are realized, a world that ensures every young person is empowered to achieve their full potential, and a world that recognizes young people's agency, resilience, and their positive contributions as agents of change. The aim of Youth 2030 is to scale up global, regional, and national actions to meet young people's needs, realize their rights, and tap into their possibilities as agents of change. This strategy is ambitious. It is guiding the UN system in stepping up support for the empowerment of young people while ensuring that the UN's work fully benefits from their insights and ideas. We have seen some progress on these fronts over the recent years, but we still have a long way to go to ensuring better youth participation and representation across the board. Through this strategy, we have an opportunity to meaningfully integrate youth into the realization of the 2030 agenda, weaving them not just as beneficiaries, but as key actors who are playing a critical role in contributing to a more sustainable future. Young people are always stepping up to the challenge. I have seen this in my work in conflict-affected areas, in humanitarian settings, and in the most vulnerable communities around the world where young people are taking leadership in finding solutions. From protesting on the streets for climate action to acting as first responders and volunteering during the COVID-19 pandemic, young people have repeatedly shown that they're not only the most resilient, but also are the most resourceful in times of crisis. As many of you are likely aware, despite some important progress, overall action to meet the Sustainable Development Goals is not yet advancing at the speed or scale required. That is why last year marked the start of an ambitious decade of action to deliver the SDGs by 2030. The COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on all 17 SDGs has shown that what began as a health crisis has quickly become a human and socioeconomic crisis, threatening to undo important sustainable development progress. Yet, despite being disproportionately affected by COVID-19, young people have demonstrated extraordinary courage, leadership, solidarity, and innovation in their desire to build a more sustainable, peaceful, and just world for current and future generations. Today, the world is home to the largest generation of youth in history. With more than half of the world's population under the age of 30, they represent the greatest opportunity we have for accelerating development and achieving the SDGs in the decade of action. To achieve the SDGs, we must engage a generation of young people who know about the goals, who care about the goals, and who actively work towards their realization. The world already has the knowledge and the resources and the tools to achieve the goals. Young people have the energy, the ingenuity, and ambition to make them a reality. With less than 10 years left to achieve the SDGs, I'm calling on all policymakers everywhere to urgently make greater investments in youth, from education to healthcare to training and creating decent jobs. Building the capacities of young people and ensuring they have the opportunities to achieve their full potential will be critical to delivering the 2030 agenda. There is no better investment a country can make than in the capacities and potential of its young people. At the same time, I encourage young people around the world to continue to actively engage in these issues and hold their governments accountable. From its inception, the UN was envisioned to unite stakeholders everywhere to tackle the world's greatest challenges. As we look to recover better from COVID-19, now more than ever, we need all stakeholders to join efforts in steering our world into a more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable path. Today's young people recognize this perhaps more than any other generation in history. So let's give them an opportunity to lead. I look forward to continuing to work hand in hand with all of you to ensure that the UN is ready and able to deliver together with and for young people everywhere. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 depends on it. Thank you.
Wow, that was reassuring. And I take this moment to thank His Excellency Al Ali, Minister of Culture and Sports, State of Qatar, and Ms. Jayatma, UN Secretary's Envoy on Youth, for taking the time to give us this video message to share it with all of us and with the youth of the Wana region. And now, without further ado, I'm going to go to the final and the third and final speaker we have today, Mr. Taha Ayhan, who's the president of Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, who has again taken time out of his busy schedule. He's just come out of an important meeting in Tatarstan, and he jumped in to talk to all of us. Let's hear to Taha.
Thank you very much, dear moderator. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, first of all. And dear Excellency Salah bin Ghanim Al Ali Bey, the Minister of Culture and Youth and Sports of Qatar. And I know that he is a great supporter of all youth initiatives in all around the world. He was the patron of the OIC Youth Capital of Doha 2019, and with his support and with his tireless efforts, we have done an influential job in Doha. So I'm always thankful to his efforts for youth and again, I'm here for his invitation. So I want to express my thanks for his invitation. Also, it was a great pleasure for me to listen to Jayatma's video message. And thank you very much again for the invitation. And hello from the capital city of Tatarstan of Russian Federation, from beautiful Kazan. I hope we can meet, we can host you, all of you here in Kazan in the next year as we declare the Kazan as the OIC Youth Capital. It's my great pleasure to be part of this valuable event under the theme of Youth Perspectives from West Asia and North Africa, taking action on COVID-19, unemployment, climate change, and other global challenges, and to share my thoughts on how youth can contribute to making of a meaningful, safe, and prosperous world. Especially in light of the current challenges and pandemic we are facing, to achieve this vision, our efforts must be strongly united. We need to work with a spirit of and solidarity, while developing inclusive partnerships with youth of all ages and further strengthening our contributions towards youth empowerment and engagement, while recognizing and appreciating their contributions. Dear sisters and brothers, and dear beloved young people, dear colleagues, since we are living in a post-COVID environment, and also we don't know if it's post-COVID or still in COVID, the effects of COVID-19 have been undeniably visible in various sectors, ranging from economy to politics and social life. The increasing unemployment rates and layoffs, the diminishing of already limited resources have raised the inequality of opportunity. The social distancing regulations require the alteration of the way of living that we are used to, not only in terms of adapting new physical conditions, but we also are facing complex problems in the terms of mental health and COVID ethics and post-COVID ethics. The highest proportion of the youth in the world is in Africa and in Middle East and in Southeast Asia, three of the most unstable areas on the earth, unfortunately. This is even though in such demographic density, the youth hold a vast potential for change. Youth provide unique capital and resource that can grow to give innovative solutions for peace and development. But why are youth very important? For me, the answer is very simple. For the last 12 years, I have worked with youth and have witnessed their unconditional commitment to hard work, social cohesion, and prosperity. I see them as the true champions of development and change in their local communities and societies. And from my personal experiences, without the youth involvement in any decision-making processes or policy-making processes, a success is impossible. They are also major contributors to social harmony, dialogue, conflict resolution, and peace building. And in my very humble opinion, understanding the needs of the youth is a necessary step towards a better future of our world. There is a real need for understanding the true potential of youth in our efforts to address the current challenges and building prosperous and sustainable future. And by using this availability, I want to urge all the member states, all the governments, and all the international and intergovernmental organizations to change their perspective over youth. They shall see the youth as a treasure. They shall see the youth as a value. They shall see the youth as a colleagues, but not as threat or as potential risk or tackling or a capital of resources. So I want to urge them to reserve a seat in a table of decision-making processes. As you all know, the Earth's climate has been changing slowly over thousands of years, and in the last century, there has been a sharp rise in global average temperatures as a result of the climate change. Currently, children and young people are more vulnerable to climate change impacts due to their limited capacities to cope and lack of decision-making power. And in just this year, 2021, we have suffered a lot from the climate change and climate crisis in all around the world, including Turkey to Australia, to North America, to Africa. Sometimes the face become the vast forest fires, then sometimes it becomes the huge floods all around the world. So we have to take immediate actions as the young people who will be the owner of the future, but also who is the holder of the today as well. Youth as a social group have traditionally been underrepresented in the decision-making processes and offered few opportunities to have their voices heard regarding issues concerning them. Youth describes a transition between childhood and adulthood that encompasses the period of adolescence and young adulthood. Youth participation in decisions that affect their lives can occur in many settings, including their family unit, educational institutions, community, and workplace. On the other hand, the labor market conditions are not very promising for youth. High unemployment, low labor force participation, and limited engagement of the youth in the entrepreneurship represent a set of challenges for young people across the Muslim world, unfortunately. In 2019, for example, the OIC average for youth unemployment was at 12%, that exceeds the world average of 11%. Today, even when the global economy has started to recover, youth unemployment has worsened in recent years. There are presently 71 unemployed million young people. Many more millions are in unsafe or informal work. According to the International Labour Organization, 156 million youth in low and middle income countries are living in poverty even though they are employed. And once we are talking about youth employment, we are talking about people who are in the beginning of their life, so who have to set their life and who have to see their family in a prosperous conditions. But it's unfortunate that there are millions of young people who cannot establish proper life either for them or for their family. Approaches that focus on prioritizing youth participation, respecting youth rights, and addressing youth aspirations are key. It's crucial that institutional programs and policy evaluations be more firmly grounded in the young people's own accounts of what they value for their human development and for the sustainable development of their communities. And I firmly believe that youth don't only play an important role as peace builders, but they can also be key actors in preventing and countering radicalization in the world. We all know that high unemployment rates, poverty, and social and political exclusion only push more and more youth to extremism. We need to engage more with young people. We need to empower them. We need to provide youth with the useful and concrete educational tools to fight violence, hatred, and extremism. We have to work on the equality in opportunities. While we are talking about a young person from a country that I don't want to mention the country's name, but you can name it. His or her only dedication or problem is to have a daily meal. But once you are putting this young lady or young gentleman in, for example, United Kingdom or in the United States, he or she can become an influential scientist who can change the world, or he can or she can be a promising political actor. He can be the mayor of London, for example, or he can be a congresswoman and change the world. So it's all about the equal opportunities. Providing the equal opportunities is now our most priority important problem especially for the vice member states, but also it's a common problem for the almost 2 out of 3 of all world countries. And dear colleagues, our future, the future of humanity and that of our planet lies in our hand. It lies also in the hands of today's younger generation who will pass the flashlight to the future generations. The only way to prosperity is through connection and unity, and most importantly, active youth with strong voices. I encourage many platforms like this, where we meet to send clear and constructive messages to the leaders and the world that youth can be and should be the greatest promoters of sustainable development, prosperity, and peace. It is my sincere wish that the ideas raised here today will go far and will be heard by decision makers and will take into account. And I wish that we will see more and more young people engagement to the decision making and policy making procedures. Thank you very much for your patience and kind attention. And I wish all the best for this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taha, for this energizing message, for outlining the importance of youth involvement in decision-making processes. Most of the people on the panel and the audience will agree with you on that. Also for your call for a perspective change on youth, not to see them as a liability, but to see them as a resource, but to see them as an asset. And for stressing on the need for youth job creation and skill development. Really appreciate for taking your time and for joining us today. Thanks a lot. So now that we are done with the first part of the event, before we move into the second part, I just want to let you know that throughout the webinar, all the participants are encouraged to submit your questions to either the speakers or the panelists using the Q&A function. And if you have any question for a specific panelist whom you're going to be hearing in a bit, please mention that in your question. You can shoot a question to a specific panelist, but along with the question, we would really appreciate if you can also include your name, your location, and your affiliation to an organization or your background very briefly. And yeah, we look forward to having this youthful panel, energetic panel. And this panel is going to be consisting of 5 great youth workers. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to be going through all of their introductions in detail, but all these are rock stars in their own right. They're superstars in their own sector. And just search for their name on Google and you'll find tons and tons of information about all of them. So I'll leave that to you guys because all of us are good at, Google searching and researching more about anything which we really like. So first up on the panel, we are going to have explosive activist energy come up. We have 2 activists among us who are out there fighting and hoping for the impossible to happen, for the young for the young people to rally together, and for the old political leaders and all the political leaders, old and young, to listen to all of us, our collective voice, and to act to safeguard our future. So first up among these two activists, I have Dana Khalida Lanzi, who's a well-known youth activist and also founder of Y17 Society from Qatar. Hi, Dana.
Hi, Ravi. Thank you for the energy and for calling me a rock star. You made my day.
All of us are, right? All of us are. Everyone on this panel, everybody on this event is a rock star, which is why we chose to be here on a Thursday morning instead of doing something else, right? So, Dana, before we go further, thanks a lot for joining us today. And I would like to ask you a few questions where I would need your honest opinions, which could make the which could make the other panelists and also the audience thinking. So the first question I have for you is, how is Y17 Society advancing the Qatar's National Vision 2020 to 2030 and the SDGs in the country? I heard about this Qatar's National Vision from His Excellency in his message. So I was just curious on how your organization and you and youth in general are engaging with it.
First of all, thank you all for this opportunity to be here, and a special thanks to my fellow panelists who I'm sure will rock the stage for continuing with that analogy. Thank you for that question, Ravi. And before we dive deeper into that, I thought I would prepare something really quickly to show the link after His Excellency's speech between the SDGs and the Qatar National Vision 2030. The Sustainable Development Goals are a collection of obviously 17 interlinked global goals, and they're designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. Similarly to that, the aim of the Qatar National Vision 2030 is to transform Qatar into an advanced society capable of achieving sustainable development by 2030. And it is built on four main pillars or goals: economic pillar, social pillar, human pillar, and environmental development pillar. We believe these pillars are at the root, and they are what will help pave the path towards achieving that goal of the Qatar National Vision 2030. Having such an aim so profound tied to our national vision is honestly something we are blessed with in Qatar, and it has acted as a catalyst for the local youth and especially the Y17 society to engage from a local level with global policymakers, with global conferences, and continue to be interlinked with the SDG 2030 agenda. And so going off from that, the Y17 society started off as a small dream, a group of friends and I had back in 2018. We had just started engaging with the Youth Assembly based in New York, and I had been assigned as the Qatar Youth Ambassador. And we started taking delegations, and we realized that whatever movement that we are about to do has to be organic. You have to understand your personal cause, your personal calling in the midst of the madness, if you may, with regards to politics, policymakers, and getting your message out there. And so we decided what better way to empower, and this is something we talked about a lot today, and we heard a lot from the speakers in the first segment, empowering youth. How can I empower youth if they don't have the right skill set needed? Youth, in fact, are very enthusiastic about their own causes, about being the change they want to see. But a lot of the time, what they need is support with skills and some sort of guidance. And above all, opportunities and access. These are three major themes that I'm sure the rest of the panelists will speak about today. So we started training them, public speaking, diplomacy skills, SDG and QMV knowledge, and they became their own young delegates to the world. Some of them even branched out after the Y17 training sessions and the Youth Assembly had hosted them to starting their own local social initiatives beyond the Y17. And so I think it's always good to have a starting point. And I'm happy and proud to say the Y17 has been that starting point and platform for many youth in Qatar. So far, over 100, alhamdulillah.
That's amazing, Dana. So now that you've laid the case for Qatar being a perfect example where it's enabling young people to both act local and think global. My second question is an extension to what you just said. I agree with you that Qatar is trying to achieve something very significant, but do you think that is sufficient on a global level? And the follow-up question to that is, how can young people be better engaged in the global processes? And are there any opportunities for young people to get engaged? So are you aware of any opportunities or, for young people at various levels?
That's a challenging question, but I'll take the challenge, Ravi. Let's put it this way. I believe personally in creating your own opportunities. And let me clarify that. On a policy-making level, governments are trying, and if they do fail or fall short, there is a huge potential that civil society holds. And the power really lies in their hands. And the majority of civil society representatives are youth. Youth make up more of our communities, statistically speaking. The power really is in our hands. And so when we step up to the challenge and step up to the game and we don't find a seat at the table, and I love saying this quote, grab a chair and sit on the table. And if you feel like you are not being meaningfully engaged, create your own community. There's power in numbers, and your voice holds power too. Create your own community the way we did with the Y17 society, and start your own social initiative, start your own social calling, and advocate for the things that you believe in. Eventually, people will listen, and eventually the change you wish to see will manifest itself. Obviously, being trained, having the right skill sets, that is all personal to you. But it is a journey, Ravi. It is a journey. It's a tough, challenging one. But I think, as we've heard from the speakers from the first segment, there's a responsibility on us as youth to act as well.
Thanks a lot for underscoring the importance of a journey, Dana. I'll come back to that later. And if you may wait for a bit, I'm going to be showing that journey even here on the panel. Thanks a lot for your thoughts and for sharing it with the young people. I'll come back to you. I'm sure that, the audience are going to have a lot of questions to you. We'll get back to you on those questions. And next up, I would like to welcome Saad, Abid. You guys would be very excited to actually look at Saad's profile, from being a great surfer to becoming a content creator and an icon on social media. Welcome, Saad.
Hello, welcome. How are you? How are you, Ravi?
Fine, Saad. Thanks a lot for being with us today. And Saad, I'm going to have a very one-on-one conversation because, like many of the audience, even I'm very excited to know more about Badri and your initiatives in Morocco and the success of it. Because if you look at it today, right, all of us, including me, have only known about activism, which is direct action or NVDA, non-violent direct action, or and a lot of other things. But with the picking up of technology and with social media, there are a lot of people using it for a lot of purposes. But the way you chose to use social media and leverage it for creating environmental awareness is awesome. I'm all ears to know more about it. But first, the question which I have for you is to raise awareness on climate issues in a country like Morocco. It's a little tricky, right? It's a little difficult because it may not be a priority. But how are you and can youth be better mobilized to slow down the effect of climate change while promoting greater sustainability in the region?
Yeah, first of all, let me tell you, welcome to everybody and thanks for receiving me. Morocco, as leadership in climate change across the African continent, has been increasing. And for me, I think it's not an option. Climate change is an obligation. That's why some people, it's true that depending on the level and the outcome, they don't treat it as a necessity. They put it at the last, rank. But in terms of youth, you talked about social media and how many people use it to different extent. I think, honestly, that there is a lot of useless stuff on TikTok and on Instagram. And I know that some exceptions, like they make a living out of it, but the majority of people, they use it to entertain with useless content. That's why I thought about how to have an added value in terms of my community and try to engage them to do something good for the country, for the city. And that's how we started using Instagram and Facebook to do beach cleanups. So basically, every time there is a city where we see a lot of trash, either in the beach or in the forest, we try to find what we call now influencer. I prefer to call them content creators, or some of them, they are not really big influencers like Elon Musk or Kardashians, when they can change the the future of one company. But we try to do something with an added value, and that's how we can engage youth, because we need to find how we can join entertaining and something useful. When they go on TikTok and dance, they entertain themselves, but there is no added value. So we found a way to join both of them and use it while they do something good. And they really love to have likes, and they really love to have people telling them that's good. I mean, what you're doing is good. So during our beach cleanups, after cleaning the beach, we offer them either surf classes, yoga classes for free, beach volley, beach soccer, so that we can mix what's necessary with what's fun. And when they cover all day using social media or stories, at the end of the day, they had fun. They didn't think that they cleaned other people's trash, that they went and did something dirty. They remember it as a fun day with friends, where not only they cleaned, but also they made a lot of good activities. That's what we came up with so far. And our initiative is called Clean and Play, where they give 1 hour cleaning, doing voluntary work, and in exchange they get 1 hour in sports or any other activities.
Thank you, Saad, for making activism more fun and playful, to put it in exact perspective. So as a follow-up to this, I mean, yes, it's fun to actually go on a beach, pick up trash, and then play a game, to come together as a community. But does it stop right there? Or are there any young or green entrepreneurs or innovators who are leading the change, who are taking it to a next level? It's better. It's one thing to be aware of the problem. It is another thing to take action. Are you aware of any of these innovators or entrepreneurs who are taking action?
Yeah, of course. In last July, Association Bahri received the Hassan Second Prize of Environment given by the Ministry of Environment, and I met like maybe 8 young entrepreneurs. One of them invented the solar oven, and it's really good for rural area when you don't have electricity. And the others, they found a way how to recycle trash and make clothes out of it. And recently in September, there was a contest called Climate Launchpad. And basically they choose 12 young entrepreneurs who have really cool ideas about how to tackle climate change. And they're gonna make a final, and the winner will go to represent Morocco in the African contest. So there is like really good business ideas, and it targets the climate crisis, and it aims to find solutions through innovative projects. And this is led by young entrepreneurs, young Moroccan entrepreneurs. So this is basically a positive sign that the future generation is taking care of what's going to happen next. And thanks to leaders like Greta Thunberg and all the people that make climate change not basically cool, but something really important, I'm sure it inspires a lot of youth now to do something better. So let's hope, inshallah, that we're going all in the same direction.
Nice, Sad. I did not know that there was such a vibrant green or eco-entrepreneurship ecosystem in Morocco. Had I known, I would have set up my startup there. Or, there's always time. I'll to actually expand at a later date. But again, I have a follow-up question. I mean, you painted a very rosy, positive picture that, yes, there are people who are getting involved, they're having fun, and, they're playing while learning about the environment and caring about it. And you also say that, there are people who are not just learning about it, but they're also acting on it and becoming entrepreneurs, building businesses and boosting the economy. But what are the downsides? I just want to understand of the recent events, right? The pandemic has played a major role. It has disrupted a lot of lives, lot of economies. So how has the pandemic impact, especially within your region? And what are the one or two major lessons that the pandemic has taught you and your partners or international organizations in the region about engaging young people in the climate action?
So for us, unfortunately, when they closed the beaches, we were not able to conduct any beach cleanup or cleanup in the forest. But I think that this pandemic made us realize everyone in the world, that some of the most important things are not money, it's more family, as many people lost many members of their families, and health. And climate change impacts directly health. So our main reason now is to say, okay, let's focus on what's going to make us better and give us a better, lifestyle. And I noticed that now, for example, in universities, all the climate change classes, all the voluntary workshops were, not empty, but it wasn't something, cool. And now I noticed that more and more people are going there. Unfortunately, the downside here in Morocco is that with the pandemic, the Moroccan government invested a lot on the health issues, which is normal because of COVID-19. But young entrepreneurs are sometimes having difficulty finding funds to develop their projects. And recently, the Ministry of Industry, the Minister Mulahfid Al-Alami, created a war room to try to help decarbonize all the businesses here in Morocco. And this is something new. And if you can also notice in all the world, climate change now with Biden, who has been elected, gave climate change a very important role. I think that this global trend is moving through that, even if there are some downsides, and it's completely linked to the lack of funding.
Thank you, Saad. I'll come back to you for more questions from the audience. Thanks a lot for your insights. Thanks a lot for the intervention, and thanks a lot for using dopamine, which comes out of social media engagement, for climate action and for climate awareness. Next up, I'm going to have, we are moving away from activists, but we are actually going to researchers. It may sound geeky when you look at their profiles that they're researchers with organizations, but no, I was fooled as well. They're researchers just on the title, but these people are actors. I have two amazing young women coming up next who are understanding the impacts of climate change at various levels in the regions, also understanding what programs or what interventions must be deployed, or how youth should be engaged to solve the effects or impact of climate change in the region, especially among the younger generations. So I have Reem, who's a researcher with the Sustainable Development Pillar at the Wana Institute next. Hello, Reem.
Hi, Ravi. How are you?
I'm good, Reem. Thanks for joining us today. And without much delay, I'm going to first jump into a question for you. I've been waiting to ask this question, especially after the two activists have painted a picture, right? They have a lot of hope. They said that they are willing to invest all their energies into creating that change. either working with various global organizations and convincing them that young people should have a voice, or leveraging social media and transforming it from just being a platform for entertainment into a platform for empowerment. We heard both the stories now. I want to hear from you the other perspective of what is actually happening on the ground. How are young people who are not activists or who are being affected by climate change taking action? So the first question which I'm going to be asking you is more related to water, which is a scarce and a valuable resource in the region. So there is a lot of political instability, right, which is going on right now in the region, be it in Syria, Jordan, or Palestine, in that area. How has that affected the water sharing treaties which the countries have? That is the first question. And in addition to that is, what role do you see young people playing in solving these issues, which you have seen in the recent years?
Before starting, I'd like to thank everyone. I'm so excited to share the stage with our youth representatives from everywhere. And good afternoon or good morning to whoever our audience are. I'll start this off. It's very unfortunate to speak of conflict, but it is part of the equation, especially in the Middle Eastern countries. So I'll start this off with numbers or fact. As Dana has mentioned, numbers are important and they are kind of everything. So I'll start this off with facts about Jordan's water situation. Jordan is known for the limited water resources, as you said, with 15 surface water basins and 12 groundwater basins. Given that 40% of our water resources is shared water, the high population growth and the influx of refugees throughout the years that the country is receiving, along with climate change impacts, are putting a lot of pressure on the water resources. These, with climate change impacts, are putting a lot of pressure on the water resources. The conditions making the gap between the demand and the supply bigger, as according to recent Jordanian water facts and figures, the supply stands at 440 million cubic meters, while the demand is 1,412 million cubic meters. On that note, one of our shared water basins is the Jordan River Basin, as you might heard of, which is shared between the Riparian countries, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. Due to the political instability in the Middle East, what has been happening in Syria, Gaza, Iraq, and Lebanon recently, the different water treaties have been opposed with dispute, unfortunately. Given that the political stance of each country may urge or even stop the communication between them. Consequently, this directly is reflected on the management of the basin. The stability, we're speaking human, social, as well as environmental, have been directly and indirectly affected. The direct impact to the political instability, which is the amount agreed in the treaty, is not received fully by the recipients. Indirectly, dams have been constructed in some countries to withhold water from getting to the other shared countries. In Jordan's case, these instabilities have caused constant challenges on the shared basin. As the demand on water increased due to the influxes of refugees, as I mentioned before, and high population growth from the country itself, as well as pollution and salinity of the water, as well as with two other major challenges, which is misallocation and mismanagement of the water in the basin. You mentioned about recommendations. One important that we reiterate, one of our most important recommendations is, given that there's no multilateral agreement between the co-riparian countries, it is important that we have a joint water commission, which can forge water communication, cooperation, and management between them, between the different countries. And when you mentioned about what is the role of youth, for us, we look at youth to be involved in they can be with different characteristics. Someone with a technical background and someone with a passion in environment. So youth who are engineers or with technical backgrounds, such as water resource management, can take part in different committees, such as the technical committee, which is energy, water, environment committee of the Water Commission, while youth with a passion for environmental stuff can be aided with capacity building programs in which they could use the knowledge they have taken to launch social media and advocacy plans for better transboundary cooperation between countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Reem. I mean, you kept me thinking with so many recommendations. I mean, these are all very impactful, and it just doesn't make sense, why these are already not in place, because, it's just very simple to implement these. And if these are implemented, most of these issues which we are facing would just disappear. Hoping for your work to actually result in some sort of impact there. I'm going to follow up that with a question which I asked, a similar question which I asked with Saad. So apart from water conflict, right, which is a negative thing which we looked at in the region, there's immense potential for sustainable energy in the region, right, in West Asia and North Africa. So I wanted to understand, how has the pandemic affected, either positively or negatively, the plans for scaling up sustainable energy initiatives in the region? And do you think scaling up these renewable energy initiatives will put the region back on track for economic growth? And what do you think is the role for young people in this entire grand game of scaling up sustainable energy or renewable energy in the region?
Thank you. I'll be zooming into Jordan to give a very proper example. I think that's the best way to go. Jordan is, as you all know or might not know, energy importer, in which it imports 90% of its energy needs. As you all know, there are many energy importers and net energy exporters. With the exception of Algeria and Libya, all southern and eastern Mediterranean countries are currently the energy importers. As well as we have the Gulf Council countries, plus Iran and Iraq are energy exporting countries, in addition to Algeria and Libya. Providing all of this, Jordan is a regional frontrunner in having renewable energy in their energy mix. The share of its electricity from renewables in Jordan grew from 0.7% in 2014 to over 13% in 2019. So before even the pandemic, renewable energy was very prominent in Jordan, and it's very part of the energy mix. So given that the greenhouse gas emissions are driven from the energy sector here in Jordan, decreasing our national dependence on greenhouse gas source emitters will directly impact other sectors, which I'll be speaking more. When I think of energy, there is a spectrum of needs where a sustainable energy source is essential. And zooming into SDG 7, as you mentioned, SDGs, from building resilience towards climate change, which is SDG 13, through decreasing our greenhouse gases, ensuring access to alternative water resources such as treated wastewater and desalination options, as well as improved wash surfaces, which is SDG 6, leading to sustainable food system, which is a very important aspect, SDG 0, SDG 2, which is zero hunger, reaching to an overarching goal, which is no poverty and leaving no one behind, SDG 1. So to answer your question, no, renewable energy initiatives are not enough on their own. We must tackle the previous sectors that I mentioned to be on the right track to build resilience to environmental threats. Achieving the target of SDG 7 will impact and be impacted by progress along the many SDG dimensions that I mentioned.
Thank you, Reem. I like the way how you connected every question back to water. I asked you a question about sustainable energy, and I like the way you got it back that if we have more green energy, on how you can tackle the water issue by maybe investing into desalination, or I mean that could be a viable solution, right, to end all these water issues. Really appreciate your insights, and I'm sure that there are a lot of questions coming your way. I'll wait for those questions. And up next, I have a junior researcher from Planetary Security Initiative of the Klingendel Institute. I have Maha Yasin. A little bit of interaction with her, I realized that nothing in her research is junior about it. So she's doing some impactful work. And welcome, Maha.
Hi, Ravi.
Maha, so I mean, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions, but I want to jump in and ask you the first question for the audience, for the other panelists, and for myself. I want to understand more about what Planetary Security Initiative is, what climate risk is, and what have been some of your accomplishments in the recent past while raising awareness on climate risk.
Yes, so thank you, Ravi, and I would also like to thank the organizer of this event to have me. And it was quite inspiring to listen to the activists and also to Rain. In a nutshell, Planetary Security Initiative, or PSI, is a research and policy development project. And beside the research that we do, we also function as a knowledge hub. And by this, we mean we raise awareness on specifically climate-related security risk. And we do this by featuring the latest reports in news and events on climate security that is happening worldwide. But we also focus on the Middle East in general, and particularly on Iraq, where I also come from. Like in Iraq, the topic of climate security is relatively new, and our effort focus on fostering cooperation between different stakeholders. These stakeholders can be from civil society, state-level governors, and academia, and our the fostering cooperation is limited to climate change and environmental degradation, and how it's affecting the fragile stability in Iraq. As a junior researcher, I contribute mostly to the outreach activities and the knowledge hub of PSI. And I do so by publishing news and articles on climate-related security risks and distribute them also on our social media channels, which is also, we realize it's something very important, especially in the Middle East. And I think Saad agrees with that. And I also help with organizing PSI meetings and workshops online and offline. And to give you an example, in June this year, we managed to set up the first ever climate security workshop in south of Iraq, which is the most affected in climate change. And by this dialogue session or workshop, we aim to raise awareness among different local actors and bring international attention to that region in the Middle East, and to how locals are dealing with the impact of climate change and what they are doing about it and how we can help out. Yes.
I'm just curious, as an outsider of the region, when I look at conflict on states like Iraq, Syria, or rest of the region, wherever there is conflict ongoing or past conflict, right? I think that climate change or climate activism or climate awareness may not be a priority to people. I always felt that maybe survival is the first priority to the young people there. So that made me curious. Can you shed some light on environmental activism and youth-led environmental activism in Iraq during or after the conflict? Are there any success stories? Are there people who think that climate change is far more important than their individual survival?
Yeah, so Ravi, in Iraq, the issue of climate change in general has been pushed aside because of the unstable security situation over there. But this doesn't mean that young Iraqis are not concerned about their future, because they also see climate change as another serious security threat. So environmental activism in Iraq started with small NGOs, and I can say that they are still small and there's very few of them on the ground. And their role mainly focus on monitoring environmental pollution and water scarcity, which, as Reem explained, is a very big issue over there. And most of the environmental work comes from volunteer groups and small greening campaigns. But the biggest role they are doing as an activist is raising awareness on social media. And they do so to form some kind of pressure on decision makers, on politicians to change policies, related to water management, agriculture. You know that in Iraq there was and still a big focus on developing the oil sector. So water and agriculture, who is mostly affected by climate change over there, was neglected. And by putting a pressure on decision makers, young Iraqis, young activists, hoping that they can change policies.
That's really shocking and an eye-opening thing for me to know that young people in Iraq are not just fighting the short-term issues with security and instability, but they're also thinking about the long-term threats like climate change. So, Maha, I'd like to understand, what do you think is needed from international organizations to support young people who are addressing these climate risks in Iraq and also in the wider WANA region, the West Asia, North Africa region?
Yeah, so I think in a wider region and in Iraq, international organization can always support them by providing capacity building programs and also funding their project. It could be also a smaller project that involves like the young communities who are mostly affected. But I think the most important thing that international organization can provide is platforms or opportunities to engage them in the global debate about the climate change risks. So what you are doing now is one of them, and I think this is great that we can have our voices heard. And to zoom also on Iraq, I think everyone knows that Iraq is a very climate vulnerable country, and young Iraqis have been witnessing the change happening very fast. I remember as a child we had winter in south of Iraq, which is not the case anymore. So I think the youth understand that that they do not have time to waste, and they have this strong will to do something about the environment and climate change, but they need to be heard. And it's their environment and it's their communities. They know better how to help their own people to adapt to the climate change, but they are also counting on international NGOs for support. And any kind of support is, of course, welcome.
Thank you, Maha. I think Dana is slightly grinning out there, thinking about young people. They have to be heard, their voices have to be amplified, and that they need to be given platforms and opportunities. She's definitely happy hearing what you said. On that note, we have the last but not the least panelist here, Mr. Enes, who's a public health expert. He brings a lot of expertise. He works definitely with activists. He definitely also works with researchers, but he comes with a different perspective as a founder of Civil Life Association. Hello, Enes.
Hello, Ravi. Thank you so much for having me today.
The pleasure is ours, Enes. So, Enes, the first question which I'm going to ask you is, in 2020, you established the Youth Station Association, right? And if I'm not wrong, the YSA aids Turkish youth living in Europe to engage in volunteering activities and to carry out studies in support of SDGs. So, what achievements have you made so far since 2020, and how do you see the association growing and developing in the future?
Thank you, Ravi, for having me again. And this is indeed a very motivating and inspiring event for me as well. My name is Enes. As like you said, I have a PhD in public health and I'm a medical doctor myself, but I have been involved very much in the voluntary activities in the past years. And I have been the founder president of the Civil Life Association, which is a national youth organization established back in 2013. And then I handed over my position there to my colleagues. And this year, last year, let's put it that way, I have established the Youth Station International, which is, I'm the current president there, and Youth Station International is an umbrella organization working to support mostly migrant youth living in different countries in Europe. And at the moment, we have branches in 6 countries in 13 locations. We have established the Youth Station during the pandemic, as you could understand. So it's a pretty new organization, but it grew so fast because there was a demand, and we we were using the best practices from different countries, from different geographies, and but still most of the work we have done was online before, as like you could understand. And at the moment, we are on a transition actually to change the online work to face-to-face activities. And of course, that is taking a lot of energy. That's a very demanding job. Just today, for example, our volunteers and our first set of trainers are delivering some trainings for our volunteers in Strasbourg, in France. And I would say in this 1 year, 1.5 years, we have managed to develop and implement the very first fellowship program for the young people in Europe that is mostly targeting the migrants. And this program specifically focuses on developing the leadership skills of our target group, young people, and encourage them for their own entrepreneurship ideas that they might have. And we have, I'm very happy to say that we have finished the very first term of this 6 months long fellowship program. And at the moment we have a call open for young people to apply for the second semester. It's a totally free course with possibility of scholarships to extensive leadership programs, mostly online, brought together by the experts of the fields. And also it gives possibility of the fellowship candidates to access the leadership programs. Normally they would have to pay thousands of dollars. So they could just go online and check them. We have some partnerships with the Harvard Business Review, and we are using some case samples from there. And it's a totally free course, but of course we are looking our volunteers to show some sort of a motivation to be able to attend that. And in regard to the future, I have to say our main objective is, of course, to help our young people understand, think, and then also perhaps to contribute to the better implementation of the SDGs, because we believe a fairer and an even world is possible with changing the perspectives and capacity of young people. So young people are the future. They are the leaders of not the future, but the today as well. So believe the most important thing, the key is to change the perspectives of them. So most of the times, like in these 1.5 years, we have organized some UN activities to show these young people how UN functions, to attract them more to UN organizations so that they can think of working there and having partnerships with UN bodies in case they might have any projects or ideas that is worth of a funding or a contribution by them. And as Youth Station, one of our aim is we will be applying to the UN ECOSOC consultative studies next year. In that way, we are willing to get more involvement in the UN organizations and improve the meaningful youth participation in their regular work cycles. And it is also worth mentioning, I believe, that we are publishing reports from time to time around the topics that concerns the young people most. The most recent reports that can be reached on our webpage is about the 21st century skills that is important, for most of the young people. And we have some reports about the COVID and also about the youth employment and entrepreneurship. If anyone is interested in, they can check it out on our webpage on youthstation.org. It's open to anyone, and all the reports are being published there. We have an open call for the weekly bulletins that we widely disseminate our activities, and anyone can just join. So please feel free to access us, to reach us for any activity that you might be interested in. So thank you so much.
So Dr. Enes, I have a follow-up question. So are you having any plans of expanding this beyond Turkey into the region? Because you heard Maha tell that, there are a lot of young people who are doing exemplary work in south of Iraq. So is there any way that, you can maybe collaborate and work, or are you looking at expansion? So, you can also work with other regions, other countries in the region?
That's actually a very interesting question for me, because we have this discussion. You can understand that this is a very brand new organization. We have established it 1.5 years ago. And what we are trying to do at the moment is just get the best of everything. Like, we are focusing on what other organizations are doing and what would be very useful. And then we're just trying to benchmark. We're just trying to to improve from the experiences that different young people have gained from there. For example, I know that this event, for example, is organized in partnership with the Peace Child International. And back in 2010, for example, I was a participant of the World Youth Congress series that was organized in Istanbul, and then also in Rio on the Rio Plus 20 series. So when you get to understand the real magic of the youth work, so you really think that you can expand it to literally anywhere. So at the moment we are on the learning phase. We do have some experiences as a team, and then what we are willing to do is just when we can say that we are very stable, we are very well established, we are definitely looking to expand this network beyond Europe, mostly perhaps firstly to Africa, Northern Africa, and then to Sub-Saharan Africa, perhaps, because there are some groups that we are in touch with, and then to Eastern countries as well. There are some, it's anyways like voluntary based, so anyone can be just volunteer, but then like as a principle, at the moment we're just focusing on the Europe, but perhaps by the mid 2022 we would be expanding into the Eastern countries as well.
Thank you, Dr. Ines. So in the interest of time, I'm going to be, we have received a lot of questions, but I'm going to take only 5 questions, one for each of you. And I request all the panelists, I'm going to be shooting a question at each of you to take less than a minute and a half to give you a response so we can conclude it within the stipulated time. My first question, we're going to go in the reverse order. So the first question is for you, Dr. Ines. The question is from Kristen Beerley from the Stimson Center. What Kristen asks is, while joint commissions for natural resource management are a nice idea, we have seen that the Turkey, Syria, Iraq, okay, there was a small confusion here. I read the wrong question, but this is a question for you, and that question was for Reem. I'll come back to Reem later. So, Dr. Ines, given your expertise in area of public health, how does improved water and broader natural resource management related to improved public health in West Asia and North Africa region?
Sorry, can I please get the question again?
How has improved water and broader natural resource management improved public health in the region?
Okay, so that's a very deep and professional question. So indeed, I believe also considering the topic of that event, during the COVID-19, one of the most important things to consider is the equalities. So within countries and within different geographies. So I have to say that I'm taking that question from a different understanding also, that what would be the effect of COVID on the national resource management and within the understanding of the equalities, because I believe that young people coming from different geographies, from different countries, do not have the same opportunities. So some people are coming with better resources, better opportunities, and some are not. So I believe that distribution of the resources and distribution of the wealth, distribution of the opportunities within young people and within the countries is a very crucial issue. And and as a public health expert, I always give value and big importance to the inequalities in health and beyond. And as we all know, because of conflicts and the wars around the world, even before the pandemic, so many people had to flee their houses and migrate to different countries. We have also seen a record-breaking number of refugees before the COVID. For example, you might be already aware that Turkey was a big hosting country for the refugees coming from, let it be the Syria or Afghanistan and so on. And so that was a big topic before the pandemic, and the world leaders, as well as the civil sector leaders, they were trying to find a solution to that issue. But with the pandemic coming up and changing the agenda of every individual in the world, we do not have that issue on air that much anymore. But unfortunately, this problem is getting bigger and bigger day by day. I mean, the fact that we do have the pandemic does not really mean that we have solved this issue. We have solved this huge problem. So I think it's very important while we're talking about the resource distribution and equal access to different resources, we should consider that beyond pandemic, we do have some other problems as well. And this is especially important for children, for adolescents, for women, or for people with disabilities. And I believe these groups are the most fragile groups within the countries, and these groups should be kept under close attention by the government and any organization. I see that we have, great fellows here who are coming from different organizations. So for any organization, I think these topics should be on the front line. And I believe that any work that is being done should pay close attention to the equalities and better distribution of the resources. So thank you so much, Ravi.
Thank you, Dr. Anes. Next up, Maha, I have a question for you from David Woolcombe of Peace Child International. David is the youngest person I ever met in my life. So David's question to you, Maha, is the MENA region is famous as an oil producing region. What are the youth in the region doing to prepare for the post-oil era, which has to be constructed in their lifetimes if we are to avoid the catastrophic climate change?
Yes, thank you, and thanks for the question. I am unfortunately not fully aware of what are the young people doing in all over the region, so I can only speak on what we know from Iraq. I think the young people work on raising the awareness on how the oil industry in Iraq is actually affecting people and affecting their environment is one of the way to prepare themselves to the future, and to push the government to put more fund and focus on investing in renewable energy. And I think Aaron Martin asking a little bit the same question in the list. So yeah, it's a big issue because the oil industry is very big in Iraq, especially in the south, and most of the environmental activism in the south of Iraq focus on this problem, and their activity brought to the attention of international journalism, who went to the area and made really good stories of how this industry is Iraq main source of income, but also killing its people, basically, and killing their environment. And this is also what pushed the government of now trying to ask international companies to come and invest in renewable energy. So I think this is raising the awareness, is their activity to prepare themselves to the post-oil era.
Thank you, Maha. Now, shooting the question at you, Reem, the question which I read earlier by mistake. This is a question from Kristen of the Stimson Center. The question here is, while joint commissions for natural resource management are a nice idea, one of the ideas which you proposed, we have seen that the Turkey, Syria, Iraq Joint Technical Committee has failed to make sufficient progress. This is from the reality, right? So what can the UN do for better management of trans-regional water resources? And what are your thoughts on this?
For the UN to be part of it or to be part of the discussion, of course, they can be part of the mediation. For whenever a conflict comes in between the riparian or the co-riparian countries, they can be part of that, in which they have an unbiased view towards the situation or the conflict before arising. So this is one way of using it. And another way, maybe UN can be, I'm not sure if maybe that's one of the idea, is they might have technology tools that might aid the co-riparian countries with scenario planning. So for us, they can provide us with very high-tech maybe or advanced solutions to use to see how can the different countries work together on, for example, if they want to initiate a dam or they want to do a water work on that basin. So for them, they can provide us with their expertise, with their knowledge and their technological tools that we can use to kind of manage that basin, even with communication or without communication. If the Water Commission is not much facilitating that cooperation between the countries.
Again, stressing the point on communication, coordination, and cooperation. Thanks a lot, Reem. Saad, looks like your message has gone to far-flung areas. We have a question coming from Musadik Mubarak from Kashmir. His question for you, Saad, is, what's the best way to tackle climate change in far-flung areas? What can teenagers do to combat climate change? Over to you, Sad.
So teenagers, I mean, they can not only join some NGOs, but also I noticed that in schools, they create some environmental clubs. And we've been working with them, especially between noon and 1, and 1 and 2, because it's the lunch break. So they take from their own time, which is not included in the school schedule, and they come with us either in the beach or in the forest to clean. Those clubs are motivated. Why? Because not only some students are trying to get some better, not grades, but basically when you are involved into volunteering, the school, they give you some extra points at the end of the year to motivate you. And also because it's a way for them to go out of the school environment and do something meaningful with their friends. So the teenagers, they can tackle the climate change by getting involved and by acting and by trying to be role models in their community and to be actors in their respective community, not only waiting for someone else to do the job. As one friend said, you cannot be watching a game and try to basically, how do I say that? Like, basically, you need to be actor. You need to be on the game if you want things to change. If you are just there cheering for the team, you cannot criticize the player. So that's how I see it for the future generations to come. Everybody should be engaged, involved, not only into climate change, but everything that makes a society better.
Thank you, Saad. Now, back to the voice of young people of Qatar and hopefully the voice of young people across the world in our fight for climate change. Dana, there's a question for you. Specifically on your thoughts of youth engagement, right? So Amanda asks you, oftentimes initiatives to include youth are very tokenistic and do not allow true ownership or true participation. How can we prevent this tokenism and meaningfully include youth in decision making and promoting ownership?
That's a big responsibility, Ravi, huh? To be the voice of the youth globally.
We need activists, right? We need activists, and not just you, like, many people like you.
Indeed.
Together, all of us. Yes.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be here and an honor to have questions like that and kind of support other youth who are going through the activism struggle. Because back to that question, Amanda, it really resonated with me. I was going through the questions and I was really hoping I would get this one. To be completely honest and very vulnerable with you, I have gone through this process myself where I have been tokenized as a youth advocate by very notable institutions multiple times. Not just myself, a lot of my fellow youth activists that I work very close with, and especially the younger ones, do go through tokenizing experiences that leave them very disempowered and kind of on the sidelines with their voice and their activism. So here's my advice, and here's how I personally tackled this through my process. I've been a youth activist since the age of roughly 15. And a lot of institutions out there globally do have an agenda, and they do look at youth in the perspective of we do need to give them a voice and a chance, but it's a one-time thing. Own it, ensure your agency is not denied. You are there for a reason. I think when they see that you have this sense of self-belief and self-empowerment, people are less likely to tokenize you. Even when they do try push back, and I think Ravi, you and I were talking about this in our pre-catch-up session, push back if there are questions you don't like or you feel uncomfortable with, or if there is a panel discussion that does not resonate with your true calling or it does not represent your voice or what you're trying to say, it's okay to say no. I think the amount of times I have said no to things is more than the amount of times I've said yes to things on an activist level. Say no, push back. You are there for a fight long term. You're not there to please anyone. You're not there to answer to anyone's agenda. You're not there to answer to anyone's points but your own. And as an activist, youth activist particularly, I think the greatest power we have is our voice. And if you're not staying true and authentic to your voice, you will feel like you are tokenizing yourself and you're betraying yourself. So beyond that, what I have personally done was go ahead and surround myself with like-minded youth, work closely with them through my role as the Qatar Youth Ambassador with the Youth Assembly. And then I have created my own small society, which is still up and coming, but you work with youth and you create a safety net. You all echo the same values, the same sentiments, and the same beliefs, and you push forward. You just keep swimming, as the cartoon says, Nemo. Just keep swimming, against the tides, and hopefully you'll get to where you want to get.
Just keep swimming, and in the meanwhile, say no to tokenism and say yes to positivity, right? And real empowerment. Thanks a lot, Dana. With all your permission, I'm going to take another additional 5 minutes. I'm going to shoot one question for all of you to pitch in and share your thoughts on. And then maybe each of you can take about 30 seconds to give your final message to the participants, to the other panelists, and also to the audience who joined us in the event today. So the question for all of you is from Corey of Human Equity Fund, Canada. So the question is, direct support from NGOs and UN can empower young women's self-reliance with a minimum of investments simply by working closely with individuals to identify needs. How can we enable young women with the right tools and help them rise out of extreme poverty? An amazing question. And, I guess all of you are well placed to answer this question. Request you to kindly take less than 30 seconds to give your thoughts on this. Go ahead, Dana, you can start.
I think just to jump out of the context of simply empowering women, which is very empowering in itself, empowering communities and community-led organizations or youth-led organizations and initiatives is essential to community growth and community empowerment. Again, we go back to the idea of grassroots, civil society, bottom up. I think when you fund or invest in small ideas and small sparks, which, by the way, from my personal experience, cost a lot less than international intervention and have a lot more impact on communities they operate in, because they are of that same fabric and they know who they're working with and they're delivering to their own homes and communities. I think that is very much needed. I think it is even part of the Youth 2030 agenda that the UN Youth Envoy was speaking about. And I encourage all of us on the call, the public, private sector representatives as well, to continue working with grassroots efforts and continue empowering marginalized communities and groups such as women, those with disabilities, and especially youth.
Thank you, Dana. Saad, what are your thoughts on this question and your final remarks?
Yeah, especially what Dana said, because we work with marginalized communities, especially with the slum here in Morocco, and we notice that because of I don't know if it's the religion or the mentality, but usually here women in Morocco in the rural area and marginalized places are left behind, and by empowering them, you basically invest on not only sustainable growth, but also by galvanizing women so that you can give them equal opportunities. And that's exactly what's happening now. If you take the global trend, this is what's happening. We talk more about salary equity. You saw the last World Cup for women, how the US team tried to ask to get equal pay with the guys. And it's very warming to see that it's going this way, because honestly, I'm going to say this, it has nothing to do with the subject, but women, all the things that they bear, they support a lot of things more than men, so they should get even more than men sometimes in terms of salary and everything, not only when they are pregnant but also when they work. They are more organized, I think, than men, so they basically should get more than men.
Thank you,
This is
sir.
my point of view.
Thank you, sir. Reem, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts, I can't reiterate more on everyone who has said grassroots. We've worked with grassroots, we worked with community-based organizations in very specific communities that work with youth. They've done incredible stuff, especially with ways to combat climate change, a way for them to have their voice heard, a way for them to ensure that their ideas are well received, are part of, for example, local adaptation plan that they can implement, which is not something that they have to bring in from somewhere else and implement it. It's what they see fit for their community and for themselves. So I can't reiterate more on the youth and their role in adaptation to climate change or even mitigation options.
Thank you, Reem. Maha, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think it will be different from the previous speakers. Of course, work with local communities, with local NGOs, and I do realize that it's important for an international organization. It's a bit difficult to put a trust in these small NGOs. You know, like you don't know them; they are very young, they are new. Maybe they don't know what to do, but trust me, they know what they do because they've been in touch with these local communities. They know how to approach them, how to communicate with them, and how to provide help. But they also, of course, need the help from international organizations because of fund issues, because of the capacity. And so I think this is the best approach. If you help out a woman, you can help out the family. We all know this. You can help out the community. So yeah, this is my message.
Thank you, Maha. Dr. Enes, let's close this with a bang. What are your thoughts?
It's very hard to say something else further, beyond what has been said. But of course, women empowerment is a very critical thing. But just, to wrap it up, and a final thing, I think whatever problem we have, let it be COVID, let it be global climate change, let it be anything else that might arise in the future, I think the solution is lying behind empowerment of the young people. Because if we change the perspectives, understanding, and improve the capacity of young people, then we are building it up for today and also for the future. So thank you so much for having us today, and it was a great pleasure for us.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Enes. It is my pleasure to listen to all of you, and thank you all of you for summarizing everything in the end, right? So, you took away one of the responsibilities from me, and it was great having you. Thanks a lot for sharing your energy and rubbing it on me. So, I can be more energetic with my startup going forward. I mean, the next couple of days, I'm going to have sleepless nights with whatever you have shared here. I'm going to be on Google sitting for the next 4 or 5 hours at least researching everything. I really liked something which Dana said that, while, we want to act local and think global, if our governments can facilitate that process, that is where, we can make the most impact with very less funding or economic resources required. And when it comes to Saad, what caught my eye is how you are using social media not just as an entertainment tool, but also as an empowering tool, and how you are connecting that from creating awareness to creating actors, and how people in Morocco are taking it forward from there, solving it. And Reem, I am never going to forget how communication, coordination, and cooperation can tackle misallocation and mismanagement, at least with water resources and all the other natural resources. I'm going to take that away as one of the key takeaways from today's session. And Maha, for your positivity and for your approach, where you say that, nothing is impossible, and even when there are bombs dropping on you, or there are people out there with a lot of fear for their life, short-term security risk is not all you should have in your mind, but you should also think about your long-term, just in case you survive, right? There's a lot to deal with, and climate change is going to be far more brutal than what is out there. So thanks for that takeaway. And Dr. Enes, thanks a lot for showing and explaining how partnerships and cooperation can actually solve problems. And I look forward to all of us catching up some other time after this event, or individually you short circuiting with the other members of the panel, because each of you people have truly lived up to my expectation of being a rock star, not just on the panel but also with your work outside. And I believe that multiplying this energy is only going to make greater impact. And we are going to be having a lot of follow-up after this event. We are going to be sending a summary of the event, and we will also be in touch with the panelists and the audience to better connect with Stimson Center and its partners projects in the region. But to take this further, to summarize and also to present a vote of thanks, can I now introduce one of the organizers, Banu?
Thank you, Ravi. My name is Banu Archmond, and I'm a research assistant with the Global Governance, Justice, and Security Program at the Stimson Center. This has been such an enriching, relevant, and important discussion and cannot be easily summed up. But a few important takeaways that I took from this were how we should all be striving for a world that ensures that every young person is empowered to achieve their full potential, and a world that recognizes young people's agency, resilience, and their positive contribution as agents of change. And the way to do this is first to grab a chair and sit at a table. In other words, create your own community, as there is a responsibility for youth to act as well. Second, to implement social media to engage youth and leverage entertainment into empowerment. Third, to use international organizations to provide youth with capacity building programs, opportunities, and most importantly, platforms to engage youth in global conversations about climate change. And finally, to say no to youth tokenism. Now is the time to trust in the potential of youth and to give them support, guidance, access, and opportunities for them to innovate and make change. Before we watch the recorded performance by Joseph Tertarian, I want to thank the co-sponsors of this event, the Stimson Center, the Permanent Mission of Qatar to the UN, the West Asia North Africa Institute, the Islamic Cooperation Youth Forum, and Peace Child International, along with our incredible rock star panelist speakers and our global audience. I'm pleased to share Joseph's music video of his song titled A Song About Yearning. Joseph is an Armenian tenor who grew up in Damascus, Syria, and sang across the region before choosing to settle in the UAE, where he has been residing since 2015. Enjoy.
Sareheri havin merene, havin merene, havin merene. Im yahari moim merene, moim merene. Boyun merene, mitari echemdese, destoliyar haçkin merene, mitari echemdese. Destoliyar haçkin merene, gayenelen kalcem nara,
Thank you once again. We look forward to staying in touch with everybody.